Hey guys, so in this video I want to talk to you about a very recent trip that we did to the Udawalawe National Park, which is in Sri Lanka, and share with you guys some of the photographs and video of animals and birds that I was able to capture in the park using the Sony A7R4 camera with the 200 to 600 millimeter zoom lens. Right guys, so as I said at the start, we're in the beautiful country of Sri Lanka, and in this video I want to share with you guys some of the photographs I was able to capture in the Udawalawe National Park using the Sony A7R4 camera and the 200 to 600 millimeter zoom lens. Now, just a little bit of background on the parks. There's actually quite a few national parks in Sri Lanka. There are two larger parks that people generally go to. The one is the Udawalawe National Park, which is more renowned for elephants, and then there's the Yale National Park, or the Yala National Park, which is more renowned for leopard sightings. But besides the leopards and elephants, there's also many of the other animals that you can see as well in Udawalawe National Park. For example, water buffalo, crocodiles, iguanas, and then of course some of the smaller animals as well, like monkeys and mongoose, as well as antelope. So there's a large variety of animals, and then of course the birds as well. There are about 200 species of birds in Sri Lanka, and many of those can be seen in the national parks. Now, the birds that I was specifically excited about photographing in the park are the cute little bee eaters. They're absolutely beautiful little birds, as well as the kingfisher and some of the eagles as well. So we spent 2 days in Udawalawe, and during our time there we stayed in a place called the Sunwin River Lodge. Now, the way that it works in the national parks is that you generally stay in a lodge outside of the main parks. The accommodation options inside the parks are quite limited. You can get some accommodation options through the government, but they are quite limited. So most people generally stay outside of the park in private lodges, and then from there you arrange yourself a private safari trip on a jeep or something like that with a driver to take you into the park. But generally you need to negotiate, and generally you shouldn't be paying more than somewhere between 8,000 up to 14,000 on the high side for a 6-hour safari trip with a driver through the park. Now, the nice thing about doing it that way is that you've got that entire jeep to yourself. So whether you're one person or a family of 4, on the first day I went with the family, and on the second day I had a private driver. You've got that entire jeep to yourself, and you can tell the driver to stop where you want to stop, to photograph things, and sometimes I just want to stop for 10 minutes and try and capture those photographs. So it's nice to be able to not to be rushed, and to have the ability to tell the driver to stop as long as you want to stop, without having people with you on the safari that are getting impatient and want you to move along. So take a look at what I was able to capture using the Sony A7R4 camera with the 200 to 600 millimeter zoom lens during our time in the park. Morning. How are you? Good. One of the first birds we came across was this cute little pair of green bee eaters. Now, one of the things I like the most about the A7R4 and the A7R5 cameras is the ability to crop in, while still retaining a good amount of pixels and without losing image quality. In this photograph, I was able to crop into 2 times crop, resulting in an effective focal length of 1200 millimeters, but still ended up with a nice sharp image with a lot of detail. In this next image of the 2 birds, I was able to crop into 1.5 times, giving me 900 millimeters of reach and a 26 megapixel image. There's a beautiful leggies hawk eagle in the tree in front of us. It's got such a cool vantage point from there. You can see out and look for prey. See the crown on the top of his head. The versatility of a good quality 200 to 600mm telephoto lens cannot be underestimated. Sometimes you need to shoot at 600mm, but other times you need to shoot at 400 or 200, like this elephant in its environment, which I shot at 400mm. Having the ability to zoom out for larger animals or animals that are closer to the frame is great. It gives you the ability to capture those animals in their environment. This oriental lizard was right next to the road, and by zooming out all the way to 200mm, I could capture the whole animal and his tail.
He's definitely seeing something in that tree. I'll try and go at it from the other side.
With wildlife, you just never know what's going to happen next or where the action's going to come from. So you need to be prepared, and having the ability to shoot at different focal lengths with a single lens is great. This is especially important if you only have one camera body with you in the field, as there often isn't enough time to change lenses in the field. Animal eye autofocus is an area that is improving quickly in the new generation cameras. The Sony A1 and the A7R5 are both excellent in this area, but as long as you use the correct focus area, the older A7R4 does a great job in my opinion. Look at this image of a ring-nosed parakeet where the focus locked onto the bird's eye at 600mm, producing a tack-sharp image. And because I'm using a high megapixel camera, I can crop into 2 times crop and still end up with a very sharp image with a lot of detail. Similarly, in these 2 shots, the camera's autofocus system had no problem locking onto the bird's eye and producing nice sharp images. In this example of a hornbill, the camera was able to lock focus onto the eye of the subject even though it was surrounded by leaves and branches. The Sony 200 to 600 lens produces a beautiful bokeh, which is that creamy background that allows your subject, which is the animal or bird, to stand out nice and sharply, even when shooting at aperture 6.3. Look how it completely obliterates the background, allowing these little bee eaters to stand out nice and clearly from their background. You'll notice the ISO is quite high in these pics at 12,800, which is quite typical for the A7R4, and of course that can result in a lot of noise. But this is something that can easily be removed in post with the new Lightroom AI noise reduction tool or Topaz denoise. Both of these work really well to remove excess noise, as long as your raw image is super sharp. I also just love this shot of the oriental lizard chilling out in the sun. The shallow depth of field completely fades out the distracting leaves and branches in the background, leaving the lizard and his little perch super sharp in the foreground. It's important to use the correct focus setting. For this goshawk, I used a flexible spot medium focus setting. And again, the camera had no problem locking onto the eye of this goshawk, even though it was completely surrounded by leaves and branches. When the animal or bird is in an open area with no obstruction around it, which can cause the focus to accidentally jump around, then I use the zone or wide focus area, like this image of a Brahmini kite. I use the same focus setting for these images of this little bee eater. The focus automatically finds a subject, which is the bird, and locks focus to ensure a sharp image. Video with the A7R4 is great, but I would highly recommend you to use a fluid head mounted onto a tripod or a beanbag to ensure stable footage, especially when you're shooting with a telephoto lens. All the videos shot in the Safari were handheld because I didn't know which side the action was going to come from. And you can definitely notice the camera shake in the footage, but I feel it's still usable. These photographs of Indian pond herons and a kingfisher at the dam wall were shot from a long distance away, probably around 50 meters. But again, because I'm shooting with a high megapixel camera, I can crop in post and get closer to my subjects and still have enough pixels to produce usable images with a lot of detail. Let's go, guys.
Kingfisher.
Really?
Yeah, you're saying right here.
Oh my goodness.
It's okay.
Okay, go slowly. So it's the second day of our 2-day trip to Udawalawe National Park, and the guide is busy taking me now to a spot where he said he saw a leopard yesterday morning. So we're going to see if we can possibly find a leopard.
Or not on the tree. Oh,
Oh yes, yes.
Grand is curious.
What is that?
Grand is curious.
So we've parked our vehicle up on the top over there
Yeah, on the rock.
on the rock.
Yeah,
But VJ says in the dry season he'll drive that vehicle down
yeah,
and he'll drive it across
yeah,
and through
yeah.
to the
True.
other side of it.
Yeah, other side, next side.
That's amazing.
Yeah, July, August is a very better safari, very good season.
Okay.
But all dry,
Uh-huh.
very hot.
Okay. But we are in the rainy season now, which is why there's lots of water everywhere.
Yeah.
And things are extremely green. So we've seen a lot of birds and we've seen some of the bigger animals, but the smaller animals are quite tough to see in the wet season.
Yeah.
We came across this cute little bee eater flying back and forth and hunting for insects. I had to hand hold the camera while shooting video because I didn't know where the action was going to come from and I didn't have time to set up a beanbag or a fluid head. It's not ideal, but at least I got the footage. Sometimes you just have to shoot on the go. In ideal situations, you want to stabilize your camera and lens on a tripod or a beanbag, but that isn't always possible. Now, of course, the A7R4 wasn't specifically designed as a video shooter. It's more of a hybrid camera with a stronger focus on photography. So in comparison with the A1, for example, there are clear limitations when it comes to video. One of these is the fact that you are limited to 4K at 30 frames per second, whereas with the A1 camera, you can shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second, which is great if you want to slow down your footage. But that being said, I've been very happy with the 4K footage this camera is able to produce. A whole herd of antelope. It's the largest group we've seen since I've been in the park. Amazing. They're so alert to any danger. There's a lot of water, so they open up the dam, the wall, so the water can come through. Yeah.
One year to one time.
It's a huge dam, right? There's a lot of water here. There's lots of water. This is a big
Yeah,
place.
lot of water. Can see that is the wall. That is the powerhouse.
Yeah. So there we go, guys. As you can see, it was an amazing trip. It was so beautiful to see those animals and birds in their natural habitats. Big shout out to my driver VJ, who also did an amazing job of taking me through the park and speaking to me about the animals and birds. If you enjoyed the video or found value, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.